This isn't just a pile of aluminum rims, it's a pile of frustration and money down the drain. These rims are all either cracked, permanently distorted, or dented beyond repair, and outside of being used for someone's craft project to sell on Etsy, they have little to no worth anymore. Each one of these has its own story of a ride cut short, a race unfinished, or in the worst case, a serious damper on a road trip. Mountain biking is a sport that comes in many different forms, from mild rolling cross-country trails to huge descents in the mountains and everywhere in between. From the super casual rider that gets out a handful of times per year to the die-hard bike junkies that ride every moment they possibly can. These days, bikes come in an overwhelming variety of options with an even larger array of components to choose from. It's honestly no surprise that such a huge ecosystem spawns a lot of debate over what brands, materials, and technologies are the best in the eyes of any given rider. Perhaps one of the single largest debates circles around materials. Aluminum, titanium, steel, and carbon bike frames have been at the core of this debate for a long time, but in the last decade, the use of carbon for wheel sets has grown into its own hot topic. In fact, this is a subject that I've had a huge shift in my own opinion on in the last couple of years. Now, before we get any further, I should take a moment to clarify that the category of carbon wheels specifically refers to the material of the rim itself. The hubs, spokes, and nipples are still the same as a traditional aluminum rimmed wheel set. For many, carbon is viewed as expensive, risky, and unnecessary, and I'll admit that I've personally subscribed to this school of thought for many years. In fact, up until a year or so ago, I firmly felt that aluminum rims held too many advantages over carbon to even consider trying them out. I'm going to get into those previously perceived advantages and how my feelings have shifted in just a minute, but first, here's a little background to help explain where I'm coming from. In the last couple of years, my riding style and terrain has taken a huge shift in direction. I've gone from being primarily a cross-country rider to full-blown addiction with gravity riding. It's been a blast, but one of the big challenges has been the abuse this realm of riding has brought to my bikes. Add to that my love for racing and traveling to explore new areas, and the durability and reliability of my bikes top the list of my personal priorities. When you've invested your time and money into these endeavors only to have them cut short by day-ending mechanical issues, it can be a huge bummer. So back to this pile of rims here. These were all damaged in a single season. The price of each of these rims ranges between $100 and $130, but that's only the beginning. The rims still have to be laced up to the hubs, which involves a considerable amount of labor, as well as the cost of any spokes and nipples that need replacing. On average, each of these ended up costing me around $250 per wheel to replace when all was said and done. To compile things further, each of these also represents considerable downtime. From ordering and shipping to labor turnaround, the wheel will easily be out of commission for 2 to 4 weeks minimum. Assuming, of course, there is supply available for the replacement rim. And as we all know, supply right now can be a huge headache. So these figures are incredibly idealistic. Also, remember me mentioning how breaking these can put a damper on a trip? Well, 2 of these did just that, including one time that ended my weekend on my very first run. Now, I'm sure some of you are wondering how someone can go through so many rims so fast unless they're doing something wrong. I get it. My scenario can seem pretty excessive to some. For a little background, I weigh in around 180 pounds, and most of these incidences involved a setup using enduro or downhill casing tires, as well as cushcore, and a minimum of 26 psi in the rear. But much more often, I'm at 28 psi or higher. Our regional terrain here in the southeast can actually be quite gnarly and technical. Places like Pisgah National Forest, Windrock Bike Park, and Snowshoe are notoriously chunky and abusive. I'd argue that this area of the United States can really put a rim's durability to task. Okay, so obviously this season of wreckage was pretty costly and the downtime was a huge bummer. I was ready for a change, and even the burliest aluminum rims weren't fixing the issue. So for me, the obvious next step was to consider carbon options. But why hadn't I ever considered carbon before? To be honest, I had a lot of preconceived negative notions about the use of this material for rims. The mentality that aluminum typically just dents and can often still be ridden while carbon will fully fail, leaving you high and dry, has some merit to it, but my experience ultimately was not to a degree that this is always the outcome of a bad blow. In fact, most of my mishaps resulted in fully cracked rims or dents so bad they were rendered destroyed. Maybe occasionally they would get me out of the woods, but not as often as I once thought they would. The other reason I was so hesitant to try carbon rims was a fear of a harsher ride quality. I really do enjoy pushing myself on technical sections at speed. The last thing I want is a more harsh hand-battering ride quality on sections of fast techie chatter. There you have it, my reasons for resistance. The brick and mortar that kept me away from even trying carbon as a rim material for a long time. So needless to say, when I finally broke down and decided to give carbon rims a chance, I was highly skeptical. I should also mention that while the aforementioned season of destruction was a huge push towards testing out carbon for myself, there were some added benefits presented by several manufacturers that helped nudge me over the edge. Companies like Santa Cruz and We Are One offer highly reputable carbon options backed by incredible warranties. I'm a big Santa Cruz fan, and I know through experience how durable their carbon frames are, but they are a bit pricey. I'm by no means saying they aren't worth it, but for dipping my toes in, it was a lot to bite off. Based out of Canada, We Are One offers a very cost-conscious rim, especially for one that's hand-laid in North America, and their praises for customer service and warranty expands far and wide across the internet. All of my typical incidences are covered under both companies' warranties, and their turnaround time is incredibly fast. My first set was a pair of stripes, which are rated for downhill use and replaced a destroyed pair of Stan's Flow EX3s. I spent the entire 2021 park season riding these rims on my Commensal Supreme and put them through constant abuse. To my surprise, they didn't feel at all harsh compared to all of the aluminum rims I've ridden. In fact, they improved the overall ride quality under hard cornering. The lateral stiffness of the rims made carving turns feel much more precise. The tracking felt like it was on rails, and it was a ton of fun experiencing this improvement. After a season on the stripes, they are still running strong and true, with only one quick retension on them after a couple of months of riding. A bit later in the season, I wanted to experiment with running my Santa Cruz High Tower as a mullet. I was fortunate that the good people over at SpokeX offered to send me a set of prototype mullet carbon wheels for the experiment. I was excited, but also still a bit concerned that perhaps I may feel some harshness when using these wheels on a shorter travel bike. But as it would turn out, my experience on the downhill bike also translated to my experience on the trail bike. I was also asked to put these prototype rims to task, and I did some pretty silly things with them without any failures. I made a video on this previously, which I'll link in the upper right hand corner of the screen if you'd like to learn more about that experience. I was impressed, and when SpokeX announced a similar warranty to the We Are Ones I was already riding, I decided to pull the trigger on a production set which I'm riding right now and I'm very impressed with so far. The SpokeX wheels are currently sold as a wheel set built up on Industry 9 Hydra hubs, but at $1,320 US, the price is certainly right. Eventually I'll do a long-term review on these once I've had an extended period of time to put them to task, so keep an eye out for that down the road. Well, there you have it. My perception of carbon wheels has made a complete 180, and if you're someone who has been having the same experiences as myself with aluminum rims, hopefully this gives you some insight into what I think is a great solution. I hope this video is informative or at the very least entertaining. Please give it a like and share it with a friend you think may benefit from the experiences I've shared here. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel to see all of our feature content, including reviews, races, and our travels seeking out the best trails we can find. I wish you all a great start to your new year, and until next time, I hope to see you out on the trails.